This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Many of us have gastric challenges. I'm going to say, we all do at one point. You can't say we haven't. Something flares up from here to there. A lot of them center around gluten and intolerance to that. But what's exactly going on there? We're going to start there. Actually, this is picking up from where we left off with her. And she's a leading functional medicine doctor in California, an expert on many different issues, including gut issues, Hashimoto's disease, hormone balancing. She's been practicing this and so much more for almost 3 decades. And we get some clarity here from Dr. Debbie Novick back on the program. How's everything in your world today?
Pretty good. How about in yours, Steve?
Good. Eager to learn more about this because a lot of us, will say, I think I'm sensitive to gluten, or, we cut back on bread products and things like that. But as I learned from you, as we started going down that road, that more was coming up. It's not just your stomach saying, hey, I don't like gluten, cut that out. There's more going on there. What do you want to pick up from where we left off?
So I think we ended last talk where I told you that 25% of the population, when they have gluten intolerance, suffer from intestinal symptoms, but 75% suffer from neurologic symptoms. And a lot of people don't connect the neurologic symptoms with the ingestion of gluten. And what happens in this country in particular, and the reason that people have become intolerant to gluten, is because of the way gluten or wheat is processed, grown, and manipulated. Basically, it's hybridized, so they combine plants to make it stronger and fight diseases and pesticides. The next thing they do is they store it in big silos in the middle of the country for years, and they gather mold and dust and bugs, and then they take it to mill to break down into flour. And they do something called deamination. So they take amino acids or parts of the protein out. And then on top of that, they also spray the wheat with Roundup. So the pesticides, the manipulation of the wheat, and the changing of the proteins, what ends up happening is when you eat it, your body doesn't break it down well because of how modified it is and how polluted it is. And it ends up causing inflammation in the intestinal tract, and in particular in the small intestine, where we have all those little finger-like projections that expand our ability to absorb food. And it's the last place where food is digested. And in between the two little, villi, there's a little connection called the junction, a tight junction, which is the last place where things get broken down into what are called peptides, which is what our bodies are used to seeing in the bloodstream as food. But because of the way gluten is manufactured, it causes our bodies an inability to break it down. And then it inflames the lining, and the lining gets inflamed, and our own immune systems attack the lining. And then you get what's called leaky gut. And it's, if I give you a metaphor, it's like having a house without windows, screens, or roof. And so you have all these unknown pieces of protein, fats, carbohydrates that are big. And the immune system looks at those and goes, oh, what the heck is that? That's a foreign object. And so the immune system starts to tag these things with antibodies and treats it not as food, but as a foreign body. And then it creates more inflammation. And because we're made of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and the immune system has a very short repertoire of recognition in terms of when it looks at proteins and all of these things, it doesn't know the difference between, let's say, wheat, rye, whatever, dairy, even your organs. right? So what ends up happening is your immune system is tagging these proteins, but it starts tagging your own proteins. So it can start having a reaction against your thyroid. It can start having a reaction against your joints. It could start having a reaction against your brain, your cerebellum, all kinds of places. And so when I say 75% of people don't suffer from intestinal symptoms, I'm saying they're suffering from these other symptoms. So they start to have thyroid issues, or they start to have what they call gluten ataxia. So you start losing your balance. You start having blurry vision. You start having unrelenting headaches or brain fog, or attention deficit or anxiety. And all of these are connected to the fact that our own immune system is attacking all those organs because of what gluten is doing. And in traditional medicine, they usually only address celiac disease. So celiac disease is a very definite definition. And they're only looking at one type of protein from wheat, which is called alpha gliadin. But there are probably 16 other types of components from gluten that can cause a flare in the body. So gluten intolerance goes way beyond celiac disease.
My gosh. I truly appreciate your depth on this. And I've heard leaky gut syndrome before. What's actually going on there? Because it sounds obviously like something's leaking from your gut into your system. How much is getting in? Like when we talk about, I heard a story recently of somebody had a perforated bowel. And I mean, that's extreme sepsis and everything ensued of that material invading your body. Is this, I'll go loose on this one, similar, but on a much smaller scale?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. That's exactly right, Steve. It's a much smaller scale. It's more of a microscopic. We're talking about breaking down little cells in between the finger-like projections. So we're talking about really, really small areas. And so we're not dealing with a systemic or broad spectrum holes all over the intestines. And there are tests you can do to figure out if the holes are between the villi or they're actually tearing the villi in half. And there's different proteins that you can test for that can determine that, So, I could give you the scientific names. I don't know if it's going to matter, but you can really decide and figure out and dive deep into how bad is that injury? How broad spectrum is it? And of course, the goal is to heal that. And the other thing that people don't understand is that what's called the enteric nervous system is all the nerves that are in the intestines that are connected to the brain that basically help the body move food along and digest food. So what happens is these antibodies and these reactions climb onto the nerves and they go up to the brain. And so then the barrier that you see in the intestinal tract is the same barrier that you have in the blood-brain barrier. And now you have leaky brain. So it's all one system. So I don't know if you've noticed when you don't feel well, when you feel sick in your stomach, you feel sick in your head. Why? Because it's all connected, right?
That's the part that many don't realize. I figured it out when I got diagnosed with an ulcer around 2016. And what was going on in my stomach, I was feeling it in my head. And then anxiety started, like, what's wrong with me? What's going on down there? Put it off. Typical, man, I get a doctor sometime. Let me go a little bit longer. Let me go a little bit longer, to the point where I had to drive myself to the hospital. Get that bad. Right. It's almost as if the stomach is the second brain.
That's right. That's right. Wow. And the gut-brain connection is huge, right? And so it's all connected. If you could stick your hand in there, right? If you could go and stick your hand in through your mouth down to your intestines and then all the way back up to the brain, it's all one system. It's all one tissue that's all interconnected. Wow. So you can imagine how these things can cause mental issues, anxiety, distress, or, frustration, brain fog, problems with coordination, with balance, because, it's all connected. And this reaction, the immune system is all over the place. It's all
Mm.
over your body. It's constantly monitoring what's coming in, right? Your immune system is supposed to protect you. It's not supposed to attack you. But when you alert it and you start to irritate it because you're allowing things to go into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, then the immune system goes haywire. It starts to really get crazy.
What's causing leaky gut syndrome? Are we doing things to create that issue?
Sure. I mean, I think leaky gut, there's a lot of different triggers for it, but primarily is the foods you eat. A lot of the foods that we eat, because they're not exactly, organic and varied and clean, and you're getting things like modified gluten, you're getting things like additives and artificial colors and sugar and modifications of all different kinds of proteins and all this stuff that our body is not designed to be able to digest
Mm.
and get rid of. And
Wow.
then you have stress. So stress itself can cause leaky gut, right? So,
Mm.
you know what? It's like you have to, when you treat somebody who has leaky gut, you also have to help them manage stress and recognize when stress is triggering the leaky gut. Also, let's say heavy metals, they could trigger leaky gut. Infections, things like bacterial overgrowth or parasites or yeast overgrowth, any of those things could also lead to. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, it went away. I
I get
scared
that
you.
all the time. I have it. That's why we have a off
Oh,
button right there.
okay. Well, I guess I scared it away.
Yeah.
So anyway, all these different toxins, triggers, inflammatory issues can lead to leaky gut.
Mm.
Trauma can lead to leaky gut. Let's say you go in a car accident or you fall and hit your head. That can also, or emotional trauma
Sure.
can lead to leaky gut.
It sounds like it's all preventable, but to a point.
Yes.
We have to eat. We can't go back 100 years where food was mostly pure. So we just have to make those choices that are better, and of course, minimize stress, and all that other stuff. What
Yep.
about autoimmune diseases? Wreaks havoc in the
So,
gut, right?
yep. Yeah. So basically, that's how autoimmune diseases begin, is with the leaky gut, leaky brain. When things penetrate and the immune system starts to get, very activated and confused, and it starts to attack organs. So
Mm.
leaky gut is usually the root cause of, say, Hashimoto's or, you know, things like MS, lupus, arthritis. Even osteoporosis can be an autoimmune disease. So the body can attack many different organs and create many diseases. And so really autoimmunity, oh, I have a patient who it was triggered by breast implants that were leaking,
Mm.
right? So toxins can create that situation. And of course, she removed the breast implants, and then she came to see me, and we made some minor modifications with her. She didn't have to make these like enormous changes in diet. All she did was remove gluten and dairy. And as soon as she did that, her body started feeling better.
Wow.
So,
So I want to make sure, Debbie, I want to make sure we're hearing this right, that leaky gut, things that can be toxic to your body, is often the springboard for autoimmune diseases.
yep,
Wow.
exactly. Exactly. Yep.
That's that kind of reverses, what I think many believe, that, well, it's just born with it, it's genetic, this, that, whatever. Wow. That's pretty like that's an eye opener for sure.
Yeah, it's like living life, right? Being exposed to the world that we're exposed to today
Yeah.
and doing the best we can to minimize those triggers in your life. Of course, you can't be perfect. Nobody is. But if you can do, I always say 80-20, right? If you can do 80% good lifestyle habits and 20% have a good time, you'll probably stay healthy. But
Mm.
if you're in the midst of being, in a huge autoimmune flare, you need to be 100% good to calm everything down. And so I always say to people who have autoimmunity or who have chronic disease, I said, your goal is to have more good days than bad. And so that is what you need to do. And when you are having a flare, having a horrible experience, you bring everything in, you really like become strict, you eat really cleanly, you reduce stress, you do all the things you need to do to calm things down. And once you're feeling great, okay, go have fun, but there may be some things you never want to eat because it'll trigger it again.
Why is it, Debbie, if you have two people, let's say they're in, similar health, they're the same
Mhm,
age, they're eating the exact same thing, like
mhm.
literally the exact same thing. Why is one affected by leaky gut syndrome, potentially leading to an autoimmune disease, and not the other one?
Well, I guess it depends on the robustness of the person's body, right? How much can they adapt to what they're being exposed to? And some people have better adaptability
Mm.
than others, right? So we talked about determinants of health, right? So we talked about, okay, how much do they take care of themselves? What experiences have they had in life? How much trauma have they experienced? What kind of genetics do they have? What is going on with them? What's their attitude? What's their mind over body type life that they're leading? And so how well can their body overcome what's happening and what they're doing to themselves? One person can be really robust and never have a problem, and the other person can just completely fall apart.
Do you think a lot of it comes from your lineage?
Some of it, because even the Cancer Society and all these chronic disease associations say that genetics are 1% of the influence. 99% is entirely up to you. So,
So it sounds like diet is at the forefront here. What are
yeah.
some things that we can do to minimize the potential for challenges?
So I say for me the most anti-inflammatory, safest diet that there is called an autoimmune paleo diet. So what does that mean? You're going to eat a cow? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that you're going to eat mostly fresh food, fruits and vegetables. You're going to eat some nuts and seeds, although some nuts and seeds can be problematic. You're going to get rid of grains altogether, which is hard for people. And you're not going to eat sugar or pastries or desserts or things like that. You can have lean, not lean, but fatty meats. Good healthy fats are crucial. Things like coconut oil, avocado oil, um, even like ghee, butter is better than seed oils. Get away from seed oils. Um, and that's pretty much what I'm talking about here. Get away from dairy.
Mm.
Um, and even legumes can be a problem for some people. So, so this is like the leaky gut diet, right? That you're going to do. Now there's a laboratory test, laboratory that's called Cyrex Labs, and what they do is they have a test that you can do based on blood that can give you your roadmap of foods rather than do this very strict diet. They can test up to 180 foods and additives and gums and things, both cooked and raw, to determine what foods you've reacted to, what foods are a problem for you. And then you can have a wider, array, a menu of what you can eat rather than doing this very strict diet. And it's up to you. Of course, the test is not cheap. It's about $500, but it'll give you the roadmap to what you need to do. And I always give patients the choice. I go, either we do this test and then you have, here's what you can eat and what you can't, or we can do this elimination diet for a period of time. And then you can start adding foods one at a time to see which foods you can reintroduce and which foods you can't. You'll know right away.
What's that test called?
It's called the Array 10 is what it's called. And it's from a laboratory called Cyrex. And they test 180 different food proteins.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Would you say, costs involved, not covered by insurance?
Right.
It's if you can afford it, it's really worth it.
I think so because it gives you peace of mind. You don't have to go what's called elimination provocation route and do a detective, job on your body. You'll have a roadmap. You'll say, okay, this is what I need to be mindful of,
Uh,
what I
it,
need to stay away from.
the elimination thing, in theory, sounds great, but it's over a period of time. You
Mhm.
got to watch how you feel.
Right.
You got to interpret what the feeling is, and then connect it to whatever you ate. Um,
Right.
wow, it's amazing what we eat challenges us. If okay, you said dairy. A lot of us have lactose issues. Is it today's dairy that's the challenge, or if it was, I don't know, 70 years ago, dairy could be an issue
Yes,
just the same?
it is today's dairy. So
Mm.
if you look at the way dairy products used to be produced in this country,
Yep.
say before the 1950s, it was all raw, raw milk. And everybody has this thing about raw milk causing disease. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's in the most pure form. And I always say to people, you should be really consuming goat milk, not cow milk, because goat milk is much closer to breast milk than cow milk.
Wow.
Cow milk has more fat, more protein, more sugar, so it's harder to digest. But if you're going to consume it, make sure it's raw because raw has all the good benefits to it and it's not pasteurized or denatured because it just changes the the proteins when you cook it. So yeah, it's the form, but also it's where did you come from and what kind of patterns have you developed over time that would make that a problem. And there's lactose intolerance, but then there's casein intolerance, which is the protein. And the protein is what is most often associated with the inflammatory stuff that happens with gluten, because the protein in cheese and the protein in gluten look very similar. And so they both become issues.
Wow. you know, you think that, well, I'm having some yogurt. It's good for me. Greek yogurt, whatever, with no um, added sugars, if you will, and all the other junk that goes in there. All right, we're getting better, but how's that being produced? It's just not pure.
Also, how often do you eat it? Right? That's another thing. If I always call the American diet, the standard American diet, sad, because what it is too many things too many times throughout the day. So, toast for breakfast, omelets with cheese, and then for lunch, what? A sandwich, wheat with cheese, and then for dinner, spaghetti with cheese. So you're eating gluten and cheese all day long.
Oh, I gotcha. I remember years ago, I talked to a fitness guy who's into nutrition, and he looked at my diet, and I'm very, I eat the same thing. Very, I don't want to say robotic. I change it up a little bit, but you get me on something, I'm going to continue eating it. And he looks at it, he goes, "Do you realize that all you're eating is dairy?" I'm like, "What are you even talking about?" An occasional cheese, yogurt, but it's like I had a smoothie with a protein drink, and either I used water or like oat milk. He goes, "It's whey protein."
Yeah.
Like I didn't even think of that. If you want to get rid of that, plant protein. So much to explore here, and we're scratching the surface. There's so much more, and somebody could reach out to you for direction on that. Can you work with anybody anywhere, Debbie?
Uh, for the most part, I can, but the truth is that there are certain rules as a chiropractor that I have to stay within my state because that's where I have a license.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I come at it from a perspective of being like a homeopath, I can work with anyone all over the country.
Gotcha. Well, we're not talking about chiropractics here today.
Right.
This is
Exactly. Exactly.
on a consultation basis. How do we find you?
My phone number is 760-519-1759, and my website is integratedmedicineministries.com.
Love what you do. Thank you for all the info. It took me a trip to the hospital to figure this stuff out. And here it is right here. And you are available with the insight.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're so very welcome. A pleasure.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.